Urgent. Our deep strikes have reached a hellish level. Ukrainian armed forces missiles broke in spectacularly. Belgorod is under a barrage of fire. Drones are cutting off Putin's favorite region. You have to see this. Blackout at full power. The thermal power plants have turned into exclusion zones. Z channels are whining and talking about something shocking. The Ukrainian armed forces are taking back Belgorod and Bryansk. Moscow's shield has crumbled. Shock, the Kremlin's oil lifeline. Yes, it has never been this close to death before. SPU drones put on a show with special effects. A massive strike live on air. Urgent evacuation. Putin is losing everything. The GRU has been defeated. Elite soldiers of the Russian army have gone to meet Kobzon. Ukrainian land is preparing for liberation. Crimea is trembling. Has it begun? The front is dragging the Kremlin down. All this and more coming up. Watch until the end. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Darina Hutsakalo, and here are the latest events. A night of horror in Russia. Russians admit they thought it would never end. Belgorod is at the epicenter of loud events. Z channels are whining, the rockets came in swarms, and all of them targeted the thermal power plant. Massive explosions live on air.
Right overhead. Oh, a hit. Again at the Belgorod thermal power plant. A second hit. Are you serious?
A blackout is inevitable after all. The region plunged into darkness. Ukrainian strikes turned off the power switches, and it seems for good.
Bach.
The governor of Belgorod, Gladkov, is in shock. After the powerful strike on energy facilities, he once again speaks of an alarming evening and large-scale destruction.
There are major damages. We see partial losses of electricity and heat. So right now we are sorting things out. And as always, our emergency crew.
While the local authorities try to hide the catastrophe, the truth breaks through to the surface. Belgorod has been left in darkness and cold. No light, no heat for the residents. The locals try to comfort themselves however they can, saying there's time for romance without electricity.
That's it, they've turned off the lights. We're having a romantic evening now, by candlelight.
However, it seems that Russian war correspondents have already lost their optimism. One of the Kremlin's mouthpieces, Alexander Kots, reports that Belgorod still hasn't recovered from previous strikes, and now the so-called rear stronghold has been hit by new ones. The region is tired of living in blackout mode. He says, what kind of stability is this? A buffer zone?
This represents an immense and overwhelming landscape of human suffering, encompassing the deep physical pain, the profound emotional anguish, and the silent, enduring struggles that people have faced throughout the long and difficult course of history, reflecting a universal experience of hardship that touches every corner of our existence and tests the very limits of our collective resilience and spirit. Almost the entire center of Belgorod, there are 25 kindergartens, 17 schools, 9 hospitals there. That is the attacks with HIMARS on infrastructure, on the CHP. On the CHP was so serious that they had to resort to such unpopular but necessary measures.
It seems that after all this commotion, the occupiers decided to act radically. Shock. Are the Russians preparing to give up the Belgorod region and on top of that even the Bryansk region? Yes, you heard that right. Z channels are starting to shout that supposedly the Ukrainian armed forces are just a step away from breaking into the border regions and cutting them off from Russia.
I want to remind you that Ukrainian forces are likely preparing an offensive on the border territories. This could be either the Belgorod region or the Bryansk region. The situation, to put it mildly, is not simple. However, the government is currently preoccupied with other issues, in particular discussions about banning Telegram. After all, if an offensive suddenly begins, bloggers and war correspondents will once again write that only conscripts and border guards were stationed at the border, and that the funds from the budget for fortifications were embezzled.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
The battle for life continues. Aid is needed for a severely wounded hero. The doctors have already done the impossible, but ahead lies not just recovery, but a series of complex surgeries. All the details on how you can help our defender can be found in the description below the video. Ukraine's defense forces have reached a new level of deep strikes. The strikes have never been this hellish before. Ours are pinning them down. Putin's most powerful oil refineries. Drones spectacularly broke into the Pskov region and wiped out the Kremlin's oil lifeline. In Evacuation.
It's flying, Artem, it's flying. It's flying somewhere, do you hear? There it is. There he is, flying. Look, it's flying. You hear me, he flew in. Look, Artem. Arrived.
Well, the third one, I got it. I broke through. Everything, the oil depot, is on fire.
The facility is likely responsible for the storage and movement of petroleum products, and because of the importance of fuel for logistics, it has strategic significance. There is an important railway connection for the occupiers nearby.
The Kremlin's oil artery is suffocating live on air. It seems the countdown has already entered its final seconds.
I have a gorgeous view from the window.
The Russians witnessed a moment that could change the game. They definitely did not expect such a turn of events. It seems this is the point after which everything could go off the rails.
Run, everyone, run, Vietnam. Run away from us, run away as fast as possible. Run.
A harsh truth. Russian air defense is powerless. As it turned out, their anti-drone protection is too. The stretched net did not save the oil refinery from a massive defeat.
Something is really going to go up in flames for us.
The sky over Pskov was abruptly shut down. Rosaviatsia announced temporary restrictions at the airport. Flights are under control and on pause. And on the ground, things are even more interesting. The authorities are warning about possible slowdowns of mobile internet. The connection is dropping and the region is shifting into a state of tense anticipation. Is it just a coincidence or something much more serious? Behind the scenes. Meanwhile, the Russian Ministry of Defense was quick to report that the situation is fully under control. They assure that supposedly everything has been repelled and the skies over Bryansk, Smolensk, Tver, Novgorod, Leningrad and Kaluga regions are under a strong protective fist. They say the shield is in place. But is everything really as cloudless as the reports paint it?
Thanks to the latest air defense systems, 113 Ukrainian fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles have been intercepted and destroyed.
But in local social media groups, the picture is completely different. There, it's not about control, but about chaos and anxiety. So who should we believe? The official reports or the first-hand accounts? Or maybe this very dual reality is exactly what was intended? Was it planned all along?
There is a large, fluffy cloud floating over there, basically. I am basically lying right here on the concrete curb, running. Then it suddenly flashed here, and then way over there.
Urgently, the security service of Ukraine can no longer be stopped. Drones are mercilessly flying toward fat targets right on the front line. An operation after which even the skeptics were left speechless. The first videos are already circulating online. The headquarters and Moscow command centers of the Russian army were burning so brightly they could be seen beyond the horizon. And this is just the beginning. A series of precise strikes. And all the showy might began to crumble like a house of cards. Is this the prologue to a major collapse? It's going to get even louder. Let's watch.
A brilliant operation by the SBU that cut the occupiers off from their command. Secret facilities were hit, ones that are usually not so easy to reach.
In general, these cities are very secretive, well hidden, and the issue of striking them has always been very relevant.
we're talking about headquarters and command posts. The information about their locations is highly classified. That's not surprising since the front line depends on their operations. But one careless move and the headquarters becomes as visible as if it were in the palm of your hand. And then it's just a matter of technology.
As a rule, they are discovered either by some kind of equipment, a satellite flies over and spots something suspicious, or by intercepting some careless conversation, like when Russian soldiers call their mothers and say, "Mom, you can't imagine they let me work at a secret headquarters somewhere in Zaporizhzhia." Intercepting a conversation is not difficult, and identifying the place, the location where he is speaking from is also possible.
Thanks to the Alpha Special Forces, 4 headquarters and command posts were blown up at once. And all of them were located behind enemy lines, that is, where the Russians felt securely hidden.
It's important when commanders from different directions gather there, with large maps. And of course it's preferable if the generals come as well. If they come in there like highways with their stripes, and then of course that's when you strike them.
We won't go into the details of these operations. It's enough to understand that this is very painstaking work. But the damage inflicted on the occupiers was worth it. Thanks to the strikes on such targets, it has become significantly more difficult for the Russian invaders to command their units, supply resources, and prepare new attacks. As part of the SBU operation, 3 locations where personnel were stationed, including FSB Special Forces, also came under attack. In addition, Ukrainian specialists struck a drone manufacturing facility, 2 fuel and lubricant depots, 2 UAV launch positions, an ammunition depot, and a logistics hub. Four command and observation posts and other military facilities were also destroyed. FP2 drones carried out strikes on these targets. According to the SBU press service, the UAVs were equipped with warheads weighing 105 kilograms, which ensured the high effectiveness of the operation. The drones are in action. The SBU is targeting not only Russian occupiers directly, but also objectives that support the front line. Of course, we're talking about the Russian military-industrial complex. The Russians have also suffered losses in recent days. UAVs paid a visit to the Metafrax chemicals plant in Perm-Krai. The distance to it is 1,600 kilometers. But that's no obstacle for the SBU when the task is to undermine Russia's rear military industry. This particular enterprise is the largest producer of methanol in Russia. Its products are used to manufacture chemical components necessary for the production of explosives and other military-grade materials. This is already a strike on the Ukhta oil refinery. Here, the SBU set a new record. This oil refinery is located 1,750 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Blowing up oil facilities seems to be one of the security service's favorite drone targets overall. The night before, the SBU also struck the Damani Naftogaz oil terminal in the Krasnodar region.
They actually hit an aircraft Type 1. A drone right in real time. I ran away. Hey, look out the window.
Taman Naftogaz is one of the largest Russian ports in the Black Sea region, handling the transshipment of oil, gas, and ammonia. The previous strike on this terminal on January 22nd caused Russia losses of around $50 million. And this is just a small part of the work done in a very short time by the security service to undermine Russia's military potential. And how much more is still ahead?
Now it's official. Russia can no longer hold Crimea. The peninsula is ominously alluring. Has it really begun? The fist of our strength struck the occupiers. Strikes that leave Russian generals' ears ringing. You have to see this. Our people decided to act tough. Sevastopol got what it deserved. Ukrainian soldiers are clearing the way. Is the liberation of Crimea about to begin? More on this coming up. Crimea is rumbling again. Explosions at military sites, drones over the peninsula, and Russian air defenses hit. Ukraine is reducing Russia's ability to use Crimea as a military foothold. But what is this? Just strikes or the beginning of the return of the peninsula? On the night of February 17th, the governor of Sevastopol announced one of the longest attacks on the peninsula. That same night, the Crimean bridge was closed, with hundreds of cars stuck in traffic jams and train movement halted.
There hadn't been random attacks on Crimea since 22. Every single one of these military operations, they were all meticulously planned and very carefully thought out in advance. And now, at this moment, when precision strikes are being carried out on strategic targets located in Crimea, we view them much more in the broader context of the first echelon, which serves as the primary first line of defense for protecting various targets situated in the Caucasus region.
Right in the heart of Russian military infrastructure, the Iskander depot in Pasishna was destroyed by Ukraine's Special Operations Forces.
First, there are fixed, non-moving stationary targets. These are under constant 24-hour surveillance and consequently tend to get hit the most frequently. On the other hand, there are also targets that are highly mobile, elusive, and only temporary in nature. Calculating, planning an operation, and carrying it out precisely is the most difficult task.
First a flash, then a column of smoke. Over the past week, the Ghosts struck a surface-to-air missile and gun system, a Panzer Swan, a Nebo-U radar system, and a BK-16 landing craft. Now, all that's left of this valuable Russian equipment is scrap metal.
Implementing a comprehensive system for monitoring both surface and air situations is absolutely essential for modern defense. It's the single most critical component of situational awareness at sea and in the air. That is exactly why these radar stations are always the very first high-priority targets to be engaged. First, there are the radar stations, then the air defense systems. Next, I heard about a breakthrough in the defenses.
Now, even the most heavily protected airfields in Crimea are no obstacle to attacks. This time, on January 20th, the airfield in Jankoy came under attack, or more precisely, its dispersal areas, the Peshchersk building. But that's not all. Earlier, equipment worth hundreds of millions of dollars was destroyed at the airfield in Sevastopol. In particular, a Russian transport plane which was simply parked there and, it seems, was just waiting for a Ukrainian drone to come for it. Crimea is a key military base and logistics center for Russian forces. It is from there that attacks on Ukraine are most often launched.
Aviation is important from both sides. To begin with, we must understand that aviation is a critical and fundamental element of a modern air defense system, serving as that very first echelon of the enemy's integrated air defense network. Secondly, and perhaps even more primarily, it is these Russian aggressors who are systematically and ruthlessly destroying our peaceful cities and infrastructure. Well, as a direct consequence of their violent actions, they are finally getting exactly what they deserve in this conflict.
Under the strikes of air defense, radars, airfields, military bases, and naval equipment are being hit. This is no longer a one-time action, but a systematic weakening of the Russian military infrastructure on the peninsula.
It is important to understand that as long as the forces of the Russian Federation currently occupying our land in Crimea continue to launch aggressive military strikes against the sovereign territory of our nation, Ukraine, they will inevitably face a powerful and decisive retaliatory response from our defenders.
Another issue is that Russia is somehow overly active. They are actively defending even their most important equipment and military facilities. Could it be that their air defense is analog?
Do you honestly believe that their firm stance of refusal and their constant use of the word "nayet" will be unable to withstand the sheer magnitude of the pressure and the intense challenges they are facing right now? They dragged it in, turned around, and now we're preparing for the next strike. So, it really seems that we are going to need some brand new Arctic uniforms, if we want to make sure this upcoming strike is completely successful.
Crimea remains Russia's key staging ground for attacks on Ukraine, and the more actively it is used, the more often it becomes a target. So now the question is not just whether there will be new attacks, but also how long Crimea can remain Russia's main military hub. Russia is also facing nothing but failures on the front line. A knockout after which Putin won't get back up, the US has deafened and blinded the Russian army. The shutdown of Starlink has done its job. You have to see this. A decisive blow to the heart of the Kremlin's war machine. Russian generals don't know where to look. The Frontline has turned into hell for the enemy. Will it be able to devour him completely? That's what we'll talk about now.
Today we are experiencing an acute need for the Starlink system. Help us.
Elon Musk is thwarting the Russian offensive. Putin's spring military campaign is in serious doubt.
Thank you to Elon Musk for modern technology. It works great, very tasty.
So the director of the Ukrainian Center for Security and Cooperation, Dmytro Shmylo, explained. Immediately after the Starlink terminals were blocked, the Russian army quickly switched to Telegram in order to maintain at least some communication on the front line. But the very next day the messenger was declared hostile, after which it also stopped working. Ho ho ho!
Why aren't you laughing? It's not funny. You didn't get it, did you? This is Russia in...
As a result, today's offensive by the Russian Federation and the more strategic objective for the spring of 2026 are on the verge of failure. Moreover, the panic is not being hidden either in the Kremlin or even on the propagandist Z platforms, where they openly talk about what it really means for the occupiers to be left without communication.
How does a tank operate on the front line right now, for example? There's a small Starlink 5.5 installed on the tank. I know it costs 35,000 hryvnias at the moment. It's installed on every tank. Thanks to this Starlink, the guys working with the tank can access the internet. They have it displayed on a tablet or phone, for example. The video feed from the Mavic, which flies high up, is displayed for them, and accordingly they fire from the tank and can see where the shells land in real time. They can see exactly where their shells are hitting. They can make corrections, adjust the aim. At the same time, using voice communication over the internet, they stay in contact with the commander. And the commander gives them instructions on where to fire, at this building, the next building, this trench, and so on. If all of this collapses, then we roll back, for example, to a previous era. And
the rollback is already obvious. This is how our military notes that the Russians have returned to the tactics of 2022 to 2023. High technologies.
It was exactly like a frozen mask. They remained perfectly motionless and completely still, standing there as if they were suspended in time without any movement at all. Completely unbeknownst to them, there were many things happening behind the scenes that remained hidden from their view and were entirely beyond their knowledge.
At the same time, it's worth noting that cables can be cut and all transmitters and antennas must be placed on tall structures. They absolutely must not be covered with anything like those same Starlinks. As a result, our drones simply got some more interesting work to do.
Here we see a Ukrainian FPV drone attacking special equipment that the Russians placed on a power line pole. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces have full-fledged internet, like Starlinks. The Russians don't even have this, so to speak, as an alternative right now. And as soon as they tried to set up this alternative, it immediately started getting hit.
However, while the Russians are using Starlinks as cup holders, the command still hopes that the overseas equipment will eventually work. For example, in Russia, they are looking for Ukrainians who, for money, will officially register satellite dishes and give them a second life. For this,
they created hundreds of fake platforms, including those very Telegram bots, which offered the service of drops to add these terminals to white lists. That's how they were eventually tracked down. First, they found out the numbers of the Starlinks that Russian soldiers wanted to sneak into the white list this way. Second, they received almost $6,000 from the Russian military.
They got scammed. They were just blatantly deceived.
And today the deceived Russians are once again claiming that they have outsmarted the treacherous West. So, with great pomp, they presented an alternative, the stratospheric platform Barrage 1. Of course, it's domestically produced.
We don't even make our own nails in a country that produces so much metal.
In short, a Wi-Fi transmitter with an amplifier is lifted into the sky on a balloon which theoretically can provide internet for up to 2 days to the areas over which the wind carries it. This is
communication, good communication, so that you can always stay connected. Nowadays, in the age of technology, any information, maps and everything else, without the internet you can't go anywhere.
In reality, the publication writes, Le Monde reports that due to the loss of Starlinks, Russia has significantly lost its potential on the battlefield. The accuracy of long-range strikes is steadily declining. Sometimes the occupiers don't even know that their defensive line has already been breached. And the losses during assaults increase with every new attempt to advance on the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces.
Right now, Russian military personnel are being sent into assaults without actually having the ability to receive up-to-the-minute battlefield intelligence, without the ability to launch drones and coordinate the actions of Russian troops in real time, such as indicating exactly where Ukrainian forces are located, determining the most effective ways to bypass them, how to avoid obstacles, and so on. Right now, this doesn't exist.
Notably, back in 2023, the commander-in-chief of the Russian armed forces, Gerasimov, promised to present their own satellite communication system in the shortest possible time. 3 years later, it becomes clear that they should have listened to Matvienko and at least started with their own nails. And
what do you think about the latest events? Write your opinion in the comments, hit the like button under the video, and stay up to date with the main news. There's more to come.